The truth is hard to come by these days, let me tell you. If you look at the general mainstream media, you're only going to get a small portion of the truth. My name is David Quintiri. I've been in the trenches for 12 years now, looking up this information and bringing it to you each and every day. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. In today's video, we're going to look at Tucker Carlson and what he had to say. I think it's really important, more now than ever before, to understand what's happening with the media. More and more, we are seeing mainstreaming of the mainstream news. It's basically the same message no matter where you look. And that's why I am really happy about seeing some individuals growing to these different levels of prominence on these other platforms out there. Some YouTube channels, some Twitter accounts have more exposure than mainstream media does. Just imagine that. With one tweet, with one video, it can have a bigger impact than all of these together. And that's why I wanted to show you this. I wanted to do a little color commentary on what he had to say and bring up some interesting points. Let's begin by looking at it right here. See what he had to say.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. You often hear people say the news is full of lies, but most of the time that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with...
This is true. There's no question about that. And they've done this so many times before. We've seen it through crises. Certain things, big major events are happening, and we know, you and I know, after documentaries are filmed about it and so on, the media withholds information all the time, or they purposely shift it in a different way. They hide it. We know that this has happened. It's been many cases like this
with
before.
Proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. How does that work? Let's see. If I tell you that a man has been unjustly arrested for armed robbery, that is not, strictly speaking, a lie. He may have been framed. At this point, there's been no trial, so no one can really say. But if I don't mention the fact that the same man has been arrested for the same crime 6 times before, am I really informing you? No, I'm not. I'm misleading you. And that's what the news media are doing in every story that matters, every day of the week, every week of the year. What's it like to work in a system like that? After more than 30 years in the middle of it, we could tell you stories. The best...
I'm sure there are a lot of stories going on here, not just in, for news anchors, but also in the newspapers, the magazines, and so on. We've heard a few, and that's certainly enough to make you think twice.
What you can hope for in the news business at this point is the freedom to tell the fullest truth that you can. But there are always limits. And you know that if you bump up against those limits often enough, you will be fired for it. That's not a guess.
Tucker got fired, but if you look at what happens, just for instance, with YouTube, you say the wrong thing, suddenly your video gets either demonetized or maybe it doesn't come up in people's YouTube feeds, and maybe there's problems with it getting out there to individuals. These things happen.
Yes, it's guaranteed. Every person who works in English language media understands that. The rule of what you can't say defines everything. It's filthy, really, and it's utterly corrupting. You can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Speech is the fundamental prerequisite for democracy. That's why it's enshrined in the first of our constitutional amendments. Amazingly, as
you must use your right to free speech. I know they don't want us to, but if we don't use it, you're definitely going to lose it.
As of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets.
I agree with that. Of course, We can see that this whole left-right paradigm, quite frankly, is very present. You know, just up until recently, a couple years ago, I didn't realize that the media was, you know, this whole partisan nonsense. You have this in such a way because of advertising, because of the marketing, because of the funding. You'll have, you know, this particular liberal type of venue will say, we don't want our advertisements going up there with you know, this type of show and this type of thing, and they'll do that on the opposite side too. The conservative side, no, we only want this type of you know, media to be approached in this sort of way. We're not going to have that. I was maybe a little too gullible, thinking that the media was supposed to tell the truth and that, you know, you would be able to find out the facts. But I guess I guess we're all in learning something. I guess that's the way it goes.
You see it on cable news. You talk about it on Twitter. The result may feel like a debate, but actually the gatekeepers are still in charge. We think that's a bad system. We know exactly how it works, and we're sick of it. Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We'll be bringing some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others. See you soon.
So while, to be honest, it doesn't matter about Tucker Carlson and what he has to say, and I know a lot of people will say, I don't like him and everything. I don't know enough about him personally. I don't know enough about the news, quite frankly. I only read the articles. I never watch the videos. But what I can tell you is that the more independent voices we have, the better. So how is he going to pay for the show? How is he going to get, you know, is it sponsored? He's not under a contract for some other companies. Like, what's going to happen here? I'm interested to see. But it's still better to even acknowledge this, that this is coming out, so that you have people saying, I don't like what this company is doing because they did this. And then we could have more openness and more honesty. At least that's the idea. So I do think that it's important to see things like this as a positive note, okay? The guy got fired, but hopefully in the end, we're able to get even a little, just a little bit more truth than we did before, because we're not beholden to particular advertisers. The same thing like myself, where if I say the wrong thing, I'm demonetized. If I say the wrong thing, I'm not going to be able to do this or that, because that's the way the platform works. That's the honest truth about it. Now, I've been able to, you know, stay within that for quite some time, but that's what this is all about. You can't even really use your free speech. Like, you can use like 80% of it, but it's that 20% that you really want to be talking about that unfortunately you can't. You can't do it even in front of your family, your friends, your coworkers, because they don't like to hear it either. They want that censored view, that sheltered view. And that's really where the world has gone. Now, I want to know what you think about this. You know, I think about this all the time, in fact, because I've been doing this a long time. And I want to know where you're at on the subject of censorship, being, you know, able to speak your mind, free speech. If you're in the United States, you have your First Amendment. What does that mean to you? Because some of the people watching this, they don't even have that. They might even be able to access this website without using a VPN. Think about that for a second. So you have this advantage, and you need to take advantage of it while you still can. If you appreciate this message, hit that thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Take care.